What's up, pilots? I hope everyone's having a great day. This is Nick from Part-Time Pilot, and today's video is going to be on estimating fuel required before you do all your calculations of your cross-country course. So this is very important, and it has helped me a ton. Once you know your checkpoints and the distance to each checkpoint, you know a total distance, and you can do a quick estimation of the fuel you're going to need. So if you do this now, it'll tell you whether you're going to need a fuel stop or not. And this can go a long way rather than assuming one way or the other. Let's say you assume that you don't need a fuel stop. You go do hours and hours of calculations for your cross-country flight only to realize you don't have enough fuel to get all the way there. You're going to need a fuel stop. Now you have to add a fuel stop. You have to add a couple checkpoints for that diversion, land, get all that airport information. You have to redo a large chunk of your cross-country plan. So let's get started. As I said, you're gonna have, this is right after you've determined your checkpoints, your distance, and your total distance. So here in this example, we have a total distance of 110 nautical miles. So we know the distance, total distance we have to fly. We can do a quick estimation. So how do we do that? Well, we know that we can get fuel from time because we have a fuel burn rate, fuel consumption rate, like gallons per hour. So if we have the time that we're burning at that rate, we can estimate the fuel burn during that time. So how do we get time? Well, we have the total distance. We need a ground speed. Speed is distance over time. Time is distance over ground speed. So for ground speed, we can just estimate our ground speed because we don't have to get an exact answer. We're going to calculate the exact amount of fuel we need later. Right now, it's just an estimation. So I like to use 95 knots. It depends, really, your ground speed depends on whether you're going to be flying in headwinds or tailwinds. I find 95 knots is just a good estimation number. So we take our total distance divided by 95 knots and we get 1.2 hours, okay? So now that we have the total time we'll be flying, we can now calculate our fuel. And we know a common consumption rate, or the consumption rate for us during cruise. So in this case, the airplane I'm using, Piper Cherokee, during cruise at about 65% RPM, 75% RPM is 10 gallons per hour. So what I do is, because part of this is going to be during climb and not cruise, and I don't want to add more calculations. Again, this is just a quick fuel estimation. And you burn more fuel during climb. So instead of making it 10, I add 2 gallons per hour and I make it 12. So I use 12, and that compensates for the extra fuel burn during climb. So if I do that, we know that fuel used is gallons per hour times the total time. We just calculated the total time to be 1.2 hours. So if we use 12 gallons per hour times 1.2, we get 14.4 gallons. So that's what we're gonna need to fly, but we now need to add fuel for our engine start, taxi, run up, approach, descent, and reserves, okay? So what I do is I add 12 gallons for all that. So 12 gallons for all of engine start, taxi, run up, approach, and descent, and reserve. So what you can do is you can just say, all right, 14.4 gallons for flight, add 12, 26.4 gallons. I'm going to break it down here why I use 12. So for engine start and taxi, a lot of people use just assume 2 gallons. I know the POH for the Piper Cherokee says 1.2 gallons, or it says I think 7 pounds of fuel you should burn, which is about 1.2 gallons. I like to round up just in case taxi or run up takes a little bit longer. You know, you always want to be conservative. So I use 2. Approach and descent, I assume I want to be safe and make sure that I have at least a half hour of flying around in pattern, holding in pattern before I can land, just in case I'm landing at a busy airport. So I use 10 gallons per hour as the consumption rate for half hour, and that's 5 gallons. And then for reserves, if it's during, this depends on if it's day or night, but FAA minimum during day is half hour. So again, I use 10 gallons per hour at half hour, and that's 5 gallons. So I have 5 gallons for my reserves, I have 5 gallons for approach and descent, and I have 2 gallons for taxi, start, and run up. So that is a total of 12. If we add it all together, we get 26.4 gallons. My aircraft can hold 48 gallons of usable fuel. So I know that on this route here, I do not have to add a fuel stop. And now I can feel good after this quick calculation to just go on and calculate the rest of my cross-country flight. Hopefully this made sense. If you guys have any questions, please comment below, and stay tuned for the next video as we continue marching on our cross-country checklist, showing you everything that needs to be done to compute a accurate cross-country plan. Thank you.